I'm Anthony Reid from the Geological Survey of South Australia in the Department of Energy and Mining. And one of the key parts of the department is support and engagement with the education sector, particularly in the geosciences. And I'm here today to talk a little bit about geoscience education in the year 2020 and beyond. And my guests here today are Tom Raimondo and Ros King. Tom, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thanks, Anthony. So I'm Tom Raimondo from the University of South Australia. I'm an Associate Professor of Geology and Geochemistry and Professorial Lead for STEM.
Thanks, Tom. And Ros?
My name's Ros King. I'm the Head of Department in the Department of Earth Sciences at the University of Adelaide. And I'm a structural geologist by trade.
Fantastic. So thanks very much for being here today. Ros, I'd like to start with you. This year has been incredibly challenging for all of us, and I'm sure it's been incredibly challenging in the education sector. When did you realise that this year would be a year like no other?
Yeah, so that's actually a really interesting question because so myself and some colleagues were actually away. We were in New Zealand running the honours field trip, which we run every year. So we were away for 2 weeks, and that's at the end of February. And we come back pretty much the start of first semester, week one. And we were quite sheltered. You know, you're in the field, you're really not doing anything other than field work. You're not seeing the social media, you're not seeing the news.
Blissfully unaware.
Yeah, exactly. It was awesome.
Yeah.
And then we came back to all these stories about Wuhan and China. And of course, there was some initial worry about international students. But I think when it really hit home was probably about week 3 of semester when we were told, okay, as of this weekend, you need to have everything online.
Wow.
And that was a big wow, online in a weekend.
Yeah.
So that was full on. And I think then pretty much all the staff teaching at that time realised this is quite different.
This is big and this is different. This is really happening.
Yeah.
This is not happening somewhere else. This is not something that's happening to other people. It's happening to us now. Yeah.
That's right. And I think at first, I guess everyone probably felt like that. It's like,
sure.
It's just happening in China. It's happening on a few cruise ships. And, that's really all we knew about or even thought about. It didn't feel like it was going to affect you quite so much as it has.
How about you, Tom? Was there something that triggered you to go, wow, this is going to be really different?
I think we took a pretty proactive approach, actually, because the writing was on the wall, I think, in many ways. And I agree with the timeline with Ros. It was about week 2. We had about 2 weeks of teaching where we were kind of doing the same old things. And then we had to go fully online within a week, basically. Wow. And at the time, we were hearing messages of other universities in Australia that had made the call, and internationally, all the commotion that was basically happening at that time. And so we basically, because I was program director of our undergrad at the time, and we basically said, look, because everyone was weighing up, should we do a component face-to-face and try and do some online? Are we going to be able to figure this out? And we just made the call and just said, look, this is going to happen. Let's just do it all online wherever possible. Be proactive, plan for the worst case scenario. And I think that actually really put us in good stead.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it meant that we were at least a little bit ahead of where things panned out.
Yeah,
and it meant that we actually did it. Within a week, we turned all of our lectures, all of our materials, all that online. And it was as seamless as you could have.
I'm sure it was quite stressful as well.
Yeah, it was.
I'm sure.
It was very stressful.
Controlled stress.
Controlled chaos, yeah. So, Ros, how would you describe the student experience then this year?
So I think if I had to describe it in one word, I'd probably say disenfranchised.
Wow.
I think, so we had field trips that ran in the first semester, which were delayed, and we recently ran those. And the students, every single one of them that you spoke to on that field trip was so happy to be back in the field, to actually see people in real life.
So this is a trip that you recently took that was supposed to happen earlier in the year. Is that what you mean?
Yes, yeah.
Right,
so these were semester 1 trips that were supposed to run back in April. And they've run recently in September. So actually the photo I have behind me is from Pitchy Richie from one of those trips.
Yeah.
And the students, every single one of them said that they can't concentrate anymore. They hate online learning.
Wow.
They don't feel they've got friends. So I know teaching during that time, there was lots of problems with anxiety, nerves, and some of that is the COVID. It's not just the online learning, but I think, I felt really bad for our first years, particularly. You come into first year, and I think all of us would agree, you start university and you make some of your lifelong friends.
Of course. It's a social experience.
Yeah. And so those first years really haven't had that time to build a cohort, to get to know each other, to, make those network. I mean, that's probably one of the most important things about going to uni, and that they've really missed out on that. And I don't think they've enjoyed the online experience at all in many ways.
So what sort of adaptations, Tom, have you made then to your teaching to try and perhaps address some of these issues?
I think we benefited hugely actually from being ahead of the curve in that respect as well, because we've spent a lot of effort over actually the past 6 years in developing two things: virtual field trips and virtual microscopy actually. So at UniSA, I lead an initiative called Project Live, which is learning through immersive virtual environments. That's existed since 2014. So we're 6 years into creating really high quality virtual experiences for our students to supplement their field training. What that meant in effect is that, because the field learning, everyone would agree in the geosciences, is the critical aspect of their learning experience. We recognized that for a long time, and we wanted to replicate that in a virtual sense. So it kind of enhances their field experience.
So what was the driver then of the initial need or desire to make that virtual?
Because I think everyone goes through what I experienced as a student, and I think is a fairly universal experience. Going into the field is such an overwhelming experience when you do it the first time. There's so much to take in. You're flooded with information, right? And you try and make as many connections as you can, but you always feel like at the end of the day, you loved it, but there's still
no idea what was going on.
That's right.
But I like being outside, and now I'm a geologist.
Pretty much. And so if you can create a virtual experience that's authentic, you offer the opportunity for two things: to do reconnaissance, so you can actually prepare before you go into the field and get more out of it because of that. And secondly, you can reflect on your experience. So all the things that didn't really gel as well as you would have hoped, or that you really felt like you're still a little confused about, you can go back and revisit. So that was our motivation. And I think that has paid off huge dividends in the COVID scenario, because every single one of our field trips, we already had the materials to create virtual field trips. So we take our students to Hallett Cove, to Selleck's Beach. We do a building stones tour along North Terrace. We have Flinders Ranges field trips as well. We have a virtual field trip for Mount Gambier and the Newer Volcanics Province. Every single one of those, all the materials had already been collected.
Wow.
All the virtual tours had already been created.
Yeah.
The only additional one that we did during the lockdown period was a virtual tour of the fossil galleries at the SA Museum. Because we usually take our students there in person, we still wanted to replicate that experience, so we created a virtual tour to do that. And so the feedback from the students was, I agree, they really do struggle with the online learning. They found that difficult to get used to. But the one thing universally that they really did appreciate was the virtual field trips, because they were so disappointed to miss out on those field experiences. But they felt they got a pretty authentic replication or a taste of what it's like to be in the field by having those. The other one that I think really, really helped was we created a virtual online microscope, basically. So that's a project which started in 2018 with Macquarie University. And it's basically a fully functional replica of what you do with a petrographic microscope. I had a PhD student who did a 6-month placement. They were embedded doing research at Macquarie during 2018. And we took UniSA's teaching collections, and we took a portion of Adelaide Uni's teaching collections as well with us. So all of those collections were digitized in 2018.
Fantastic.
Which we never could have anticipated
how useful
they would have become.
Yeah.
But suddenly, all of these thin sections that we needed to teach microscopy were already online.
Available.
In super high resolution to be
almost
able to run.
like you knew.
Giving too much away here, aren't I? So we were by being ahead of the curve, we were very well prepared, I think, compared to a lot of other areas which probably hadn't invested as much time and energy in embracing the online learning and that sort of digital space.
So I guess another element of the university experience is obviously postgraduate studies, and a lot of the research that, for example, the Geological Survey is engaged in is really through and done by PhD students, for example. So, Ros, has there been difficulties or with international students returning? Because a lot of PhD students are internationals. Has that been an issue at the university?
Yeah, so I mean, the university as a whole struggled obviously with all international students, so not just HDR returning. I think in earth sciences we were lucky. We have a cohort of Chinese students at first year. They were already here,
right?
So before the shutdown and lock of borders. So in that sense, we were quite lucky. In terms of HDR students, most of our students were already here. We had one student who'd gone home to China at that time, and he's still there.
Oh, wow.
So
that is very difficult.
And it's impressive what his supervisors have been doing as well to try and get him through. We can't just put his PhD on hold for indefinitely. It's going to be almost a year soon.
Sure.
So his supervisor's been fantastic, preparing his samples, sending them the results of the geochemistry and yeah, exactly. And so he's been able to continue it, but I guess it's not the same as being here and being hands-on himself.
Oh, for sure.
But yeah, we've tried our best to try and band-aid, I guess, if you like, those students. And then I guess probably the biggest impact is the students actually coming. So new starting international students, because then you have the problem of visas.
Yeah.
And of course, the government weren't processing visas there for a long time. I know they've just started in the last couple of months to start processing visas again. But then, there's no international travel. It's just so hard to get those people here, and it's stopping people's lives in some respect. Whether they choose to go somewhere else,
yeah,
they may well do.
Yeah, so there's still a lot of uncertainty then around international student return.
Yeah. So I know. So the university is part of a pilot program that's trying to get international students flown in from Singapore on a chartered flight. You've probably seen it in the news. And so there are opportunities there, and that's going to be mostly returning students, we hope.
Already enrolled?
Already enrolled.
I see.
Yeah. But there is potential there'll be brand new students on that flight if it happens.
If it happens. Okay. Well, it's a very interesting and uncertain future in some respects, but it sounds like you've both made the best of a difficult year, and obviously, having amazing technology and advances that you've already made in the space of virtual learning. That is just, we're very lucky here in South Australia to have professionals like you.
Honestly, Anthony, I think that in many ways the geosciences have led a lot of this, because UniSA and Adelaide Uni and many other universities across Australia are part of the Australasian Universities Geoscience Educators Network. That has really spearheaded the move into online learning in Australia for the geosciences. That started around the same time as Project Live at around 2014, 2015. AusGeol is this huge resource of 3D outcrop information and 3D sample inventories that anyone can access. All of this stuff online, just as demonstration of the impact. Project Live website, the Image Matrix website, which is this online microscopy platform, they had upwards of around 5,000, 6,000 hits in that 2 to 3 month period when COVID was happening. Project Live, or those hits came from 35 countries.
Wow.
And we had messages from across the world, people saying this is a lifesaver,
Yeah.
So the geosciences, I think, it's got so much to offer, because field experiences, rock samples, outcrops, they're so photogenic. They create such beautiful...
This is true.
They create such beautiful visualizations that you can do so much with. So we're blessed with that opportunity. South Australia as well is blessed with so much diversity in terms of what it can capture. So even under lockdown, we could still access, if we wanted to create experiences just from our home base, we've got so many great stories to tell, so many great outcrops to capture. A more complete cross-section of Earth's history than you'll find in any other capital city in Australia and in the world, really. So we've got a great team of people. Algan has really been the driver behind that in Australia, and we've benefited from that hugely. So that has really given us a path through the pandemic, and it's opened up now where people are really getting to grips with this online learning, so many more opportunities because people are embracing it much more than they have.
I guess, and it's also about accessibility,
Exactly.
You don't have to be able to, endure weeks of heat and sweat and flies, and you can get out there and see and understand the Earth. Maybe this has lots of, applications in terms of outreach and, the general public and this sort of stuff. I mean, yeah.
It's a motivation, I think, for many of us. If you look at geoscience diversity, inclusion,
Absolutely.
accessibility, people who have never been able to do field trips before are now able to do them in an authentic way.
Absolutely.
So it's not a kind of Mickey Mouse or fairly poor cousin to the field experience. It's really quite convincing and genuine, and people come out of it feeling like they've had a similar learning experience.
Fantastic. Without the flies.
Well, exactly. That's right. And without the sunscreen, without all of that sort of stuff, which we all love, of course.
Well,
we wouldn't do it without it. But yeah.
Totally agree with everything that you're saying, Tom, but I don't think you can downplay the experience of being in the field.
Oh, of course.
And having your hands on rocks in practicals. I think they go hand in hand. I don't think I would want to replace geoscience learning completely virtually. I think you need to actually look at things and touch them and move them around and, look how the light bounces off the minerals and to see different cleavages and be in the field and be able to look across the valley and turn around and look in the opposite direction. Yes, you can get some of that in virtual, but I think sometimes, particularly thinking about the way people learn, a lot of people are in sciences because they're doers and they learn better by doing things. So, our subject is an applied subject and we can't lose that either.
Oh, for sure. Well, maybe on that point, we will close off. I really thank you both for your time this morning, and it's been great to hear about geoscience education in this year of all years. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Anthony.
Thanks very much.